Thank you so much, Madhu, for your kind introduction. So, very good evening, my dear professional colleagues. And I'm extremely sorry for the technical glitch actually. So, now we'll get into this the legacy meets that is, the linagliptin and empagliflozin for glucometabolic benefits and optimum cardiorenal risk reduction in your patients. And today we are going to talk about this evidence-based optimization of empagliflozin and linagliptin fixed dose combination in patients suffering from type 2 diabetes. I am Dr. Sepuri Krishnamohan. I am an endocrinologist at my own center, Sepuri Diabetes and Endocrine Center, Kurnool. And moving to the content, and this is taken from this the global discovery the global discover study program actually. So the uncontrolled HbA1c is a major concern globally, and the discover study program is divided into like the total cohorts and the Southeast Asia. So the total cohorts is somewhere around 11,891, and the Southeast Asia the total cohort is 2,052, and the participants from India are 1925 and Indonesia 126. And you can clearly see that the green represents the HbA1c of less than 7%, and the yellow represents from 7 to 7.9, and the orange represents the 8 to 8.9, and the brick red represents around or more than 9% of glycosylated hemoglobin. And you can very clearly see that very less number of percentage in the total cohort in the discover study program are somewhere around some less than 7% of HbA1c, and likewise even in the Southeast Asia it is much less when compared to the total cohort, and it is much less in India, and Indonesia it is much less. So that means the patients suffering from the out of control HbA1c is more than the required the control group of this particular less than 7% of HbA1c. And on the right hand side you can see this is taken from the landmark study, the UKPDS 49, that is United Kingdom Prospective Diabetes Study. The glycemic control tends to decline over time with monotherapy. So this is taken with this metformin actually. They adequately controlled on metformin on the x-axis, and the percentage of glycosylated hemoglobin on the y-axis. You can see in the initial 3 years it is 44%, and it has declined to 34% in the next 6 years, and it has declined to only 13%, 13% in the next 9 years. That means the only 17% attained target HbA1c of less than 7 in this particular 13% in Southeast Asian population, and globally it is the 27% of the patient had an A1C of around or more than 9%, and the highest proportions in Southeast Asia, the India and the Indonesia, they are somewhere around some 36%. And now the impact of the same global discovery study, the impact of early or late intensification of glucose lowering therapy in patients suffering from type 2 diabetes, the global discovery study. And you can clearly see this the bar diagram. The blue represents the early intensification and the yellow represents the late intensification. You can clearly see that the proportion of patients achieving HbA1c of less than 7 over 3 years of follow-up according to early and the late intensification of treatment. And you can clearly see that after 6 months you can clearly see that the early intensification group had achieved 72.8 versus the late intensification, that is 31.7, and after 1 year it is 69.5 when compared to this 33.7 respectively, and after 2 years it is 66.1 the early intensification versus the late intensification, that is 35.4, and the after 36 months this is 3 years the early intensification is 61.8 and 37.9, and the learnings from this particular the study is early diagnosis and timely intensification of glucose lowering treatment is important for achieving long term glycemic control, thereby improving the clinical outcomes and the reduction of the micro or macrovascular complications of diabetes. And factors associated with increased rate of disease progression. The major factors of diagnosis influencing the diabetes progression: the higher HbA1c, the younger age, and the higher the BMI, and lower SDLC, and the increased triglycerides. These are all the multiple factors. They are associated with increased rate of disease progression. And the HbA1c diagnosis is one of the main determinants of the diabetes progression, and we can see that every 1% increase in the HbA1c is associated with the beta cell stress, which is increased by 3.8%, and every 1% HbA1c drop is associated with reduced risk of the myocardial infarction by 14%, heart failure by 16%, microvascular complications by 37%, and the overall mortality by 21%. And let us look at the patient suffering from uncontrolled type 2 diabetes who is on metformin, and the presenting complaints are the patient aged around 49 years, male, suffering from type 2 diabetes mellitus from the last 2 years, and he's got comorbidities like hypertension and dyslipidemia, and the blood pressure is 138/82 millimeters of mercury, and his body mass index is 28.5 kilogram per meter square. And the medication history, he is taking metformin 500 mg BD initiated after 3 months of lifestyle management. So in the initial period the doctor has advised him lifestyle management for the 3 months, and later on he started metformin, that is 500 BD, and the dose was increased to 1000 milligram BD after 6 months back when the HbA1c was 8.3. This is the classical example of the delayed intensification of the drugs. That is, he was put on methodically, but it is right. But now the funda in treating the type 2 diabetes mellitus is hit on, hit early, hit hard. That is the funda. So you have to take care of the management in an intensified management like the dual therapy or the triple therapy. And the patient is currently on the metformin 1000 milligrams BD and amlodipine 5 milligram and telmisartan 40 milligram FDC, that is once a day, and rosuvastatin 20 milligram for his dyslipidemia. And the current laboratory results, that is HbA1c is 8.6, it is terribly out of control, and fasting plasma glucose is 165, which is also out of control, and the postprandial glucose is 280 milligram, that is also out of control. These three are called the glycemic triad actually. See, the glycemic triad is above the target, and the LDLC is 120 milligram per deciliter, which is no way acceptable in a patient suffering from type 2 diabetes. And the estimated glomerular filtration rate is 73 ml per minute per 1.73 meters square of the surface body area. This is okay. The renal function is okay. Yeah, the primary clinical concerns of our reference case, 49 years male, uncontrolled glycemia, that is HbA1c of 8.6 and metformin, is suffering from obesity, that is BMI of 28.5 kg per meter square. As per the Indian guidelines, anything about 27.5 is considered obesity, and the additional risk factors are hypertension and dyslipidemia. And this is pole 1. Where do we go from here? Option A is add a single agent to metformin, that is a DPP4 inhibitor or metformin plus or SU sulfonylurea plus metformin. And option B is initiate SGLT2 inhibitor plus DPP4 inhibitor FDC along with metformin. And C, any other option or any other opinion. So all of you know that the patient is already, the treatment is being delayed, the intensification is very much delayed, there is no early intensification in this patient. So option B will be appropriate in this patient, that is starting the FDC of the SGLT2 inhibitor and the DPP4 inhibitor will be very appropriate, keeping the comorbidities and the glycemic control and the HbA1c levels in this particular case. And when to initiate a combination therapy, the American Diabetes Association 2021 guidelines, they say that the absolute effectiveness of most oral medications alone, that is rarely exceeds 1%. That is, initiate a combination therapy when the initial combination therapy in patients presenting with HbA1c levels 1.5 to 2% above the target, that is either 8.5 or 9%. That is what the ADA 2021 says. And the AA's and the A's, the American Association for the Clinical Endocrinologists and the American College of Endocrinology 2020, they say that entry HbA1c, that is at the time of diagnosis, if it is around or more than 7.5 to 9%, consider either dual or triple therapy, and consider the initiating combination therapy if the HbA1c is 1.5% above the target, that is according to our RSSDA and ESI, that is the Endocrine Society of India 2020 says. అయిపోతుంది
అట్లా సార్ ఇప్పుడు అదే అర్థం
ఏం కాదు ఏం కాదు అదే రెండు లేవా
రెండు బంద్ అయ్యాయి
మేడం. నెక్స్ట్ స్లైడ్ ప్లీజ్. Next slide, please. Now, sorry for the technical glitch again, my friends. So, possible effects of combinations on cardiometabolic risk factors, and the entire circle is the metformin plus SGLT2 inhibitor plus DPP4 combination, and the one in the light green, is the metformin plus DPP4. On the top left hand, the right hand quadrangle, that is on the top, it is metformin plus SU. And if you can observe this particular the combination of metformin plus SGLT2 and DPP4 inhibitors, they have the advantages of the control, the BP reduction and the weight reduction, and the cardiovascular and renal benefit safety, and the evidence of the individual components, and low risk of hypoglycemia, and powerful and easy efficacy, early efficacy. Next slide, please. Next slide, Madhu. Yeah, now coming to the diabetes pathophysiology, that is from the triad. Actually, it was earlier the triad postulated by my mentor Ralph Anthony DiFranco, and now it is onto this ominous octet that is being postulated by Ralph Anthony DiFranco from 2010. That is, the eight culprits are there in this particular hyperglycemia. Earlier there were only three, and that was the increased hepatic production in the liver and the decreased insulin secretion at the level of beta cell and the decreased peripheral glucose utilization, that is insulin resistance at the level of muscle, at the level of fat, at the level of liver. And now it is the ominous octet. The hyperglycemia is influenced by the decreased incretin effect and the increased lipolysis and the increased glucose reabsorption and the decreased glucose uptake by the muscle and the neurotransmitter dysfunction and the increased hepatic glucose production. At the level of islet alpha cell, the increased glucagon secretion and the decreased insulin secretion at the level of the beta cell. And next slide, please. Yeah, SGLT2 and inhibitor and the DP4 inhibitor have separate but complementary glucose lowering mechanisms. The effect on 8x8 pathophysiological aspects of the ominous octet when these particular two agents are added to the metformin actually. So the sulfonylureas and the TZD and the GLP-1 receptor agonists and the DPP4s, they act at the level of this particular beta cell. The decreased insulin secretion that becomes the increased insulin secretion, and the GLP-1 receptor agonists and the DP4 inhibition, they decrease the secretion of the insulin, and the thiazolidinediones, that is the pioglitazone, the only molecule available in India, and the metformin and the GLP-1 receptor agonists act at the level of liver and they decrease the glucosic hepatic output, and at the level of the brain, the GLP-1 receptor agonists and the DPP4 and the bromocriptine, they act at the level of the neurotransmitter dysfunction and they improve that neurotransmitter dysfunction, and the thiazolidinediones and the metformin and the GLP-1 receptor agonists, they act at the level of muscle and the fat and the liver, and the decreased glucose muscle uptake is being increased by these agents, and the SGLT2s, they act at the level of kidney and they increase they decrease the reabsorption of glucose, thereby 80 to 120 grams of glucose is excreted, that is the renal glycosuria happens at the level of the proximal convoluted tubule, and the thiazolidinedione and metformin, they decrease the lipolysis at the level of fat. So these are the mechanism of actions of these particular different drugs, which though they are separate, but they are complementary in lowering the blood glucose. Next slide, please. And according to an article published in the JME, the retrospective study of the persistence, adherence, and health economic outcomes of the fixed dose combinations versus loose dose combinations of oral antidiabetics, you can clearly see the 12,590 patients on the fixed dose combination therapy plus 10,771 patients on the loose dose combination therapy, and the total cohort is 23,361. The key takeaways in the FDC group, that is significantly the higher rates of adherence to the therapy, which leads to the increased 25% higher odds of the adherence, and in the non-persistence group, that decreases by 21% lower odds of non-persistence. Next slide, please. And the ultimate inference is the differences from a cost perspective to results the favored FDC therapy, including total predicted monthly all-cause costs and the type 2 diabetes related costs as compared to the LDC, that is loose drug combination therapy. Next slide, please. And the primary clinical concerns of our reference case, the 49-year-old male, the uncontrolled glycemia, the HbA1c, uncontrolled on metformin, obesity and additional risk factors, hypertension, and this dyslipidemia. And the poll 2 is in our reference case. Which one would you prefer? The sequential use of SGLT2 or DPP4 inhibitor followed by other, or the early initiation of SGLT2 plus DPP4 fixed dose combination? And it is obviously the option B, that is early initiation of the combination to existing metformin, that is the combination of the FDC of the SGLT2 and the DPP4 inhibitors. And the points to ponder for early SGLT2 and DPP4 FDC with metformin over the other FDCs as the patient progresses along with the cardiorenal continuum. And the first question is, does it offer additional glycemia benefits, and it is how early? And second is, does the approach address pathophysiology better, the amino octet? And next, would it improve the unmet clinical needs such as weight gain and hypoglycemia? And would adherence compliance improve and clinical inertia reduce? Absolutely yes. Yeah, next slide please. And the compelling reasons to initiate empagliflozin and linagliptin FDC as next line therapy in patients with type 2 diabetes mellitus inadequately controlled on metformin. Next slide please. And you can clearly see that the combination of metformin and the SGLT2 inhibitor plus the DPP4 inhibitor have got the complementary efficacy from 8.5 or below 9 of A1C. The combination the brings down to the level of 6.5 to 7 of A1C, and at A1C of 8% to 8.5%, HbA1c lowering is slightly greater than DPP4 inhibitors than with SGLT2 inhibitors as add-on therapy to metformin. SGLT2 or inhibitors are associated with larger HbA1c improvements than DPP4 inhibitors at higher HbA1c levels, and in cases of HbA1c of around or more than 8%, dual DPP4 and SGLT2 add-on therapy to metformin should be considered to help more patients achieve glycemic targets. Next slide please. So this is again the primary clinical concerns of our own the reference case. When we address this particular uncontrolled glycemia, you can see this particular empagliflozin and linagliptin FDC was superior to its individual components in reducing HbA1c up to week 24 in metformin treated patients with type 2 diabetes, and you can clearly see the reductions. The empagliflozin and the linagliptin 10/5 combination in the diagram given in the black, and the EMPA 25 and the Lina 5 blue, and the EMPA 10 alone that is in the grey, and the light blue is the EMPA 25 and the Lina 5 is in the dark blue. So you can see the A1C reductions are higher with the 25/5 combination, that is empagliflozin 25 plus linagliptin combination, and the same the patients with HbA1c of more than 7% at baseline who had the HbA1c of less than 7% at week 24. You can clearly see this is highest with this particular the combination of empagliflozin 25 bar linagliptin 5 milligram. And next slide please. And you can clearly see this is the graph showing the HbA1c reductions with empagliflozin and linagliptin FDC was sustained up to 52 weeks, that is almost 1 year in patients with type 2 diabetes and metformin. You can very clearly see that the maximum reductions are with the blue, that is on the last. And next slide please. And coming to this particular parameters, we have addressed this particular uncontrolled glycemia. And now coming to the obesity, that is BMI of 28.5 kilograms per meter square, and additional risk factors like hypertension actually. So you can find this significant blood pressure, the body weight reduction at least 3 kilos. But in my clinical practice, I am seeing at least 4 to 5 kilos of reduction in the weight with empagliflozin alone 25 milligram, or with the combination of linagliptin. And the BP reduction is also, that is you can find the daytime BP reduction, even the evening reduction, and the morning reduction, and the nighttime reduction, that addresses the 24-hour BP control with this particular molecule empagliflozin. And with this linagliptin, the main molecule that is acting is empagliflozin, not the linagliptin. And the nocturnal hypertension is addressed actually with this particular molecule, so that the reduction in the events of the coronary artery disease, the myocardial infarction, and the strokes are being reduced, because nocturnal hypertension is little bit effectively controlled by this empagliflozin with regards to the BP reduction. And the additional factor, that is the reductions in the serum uric acid, that is a beneficial role we see with this particular the SGLT2 inhibitors. Next slide please. And again, coming to the other safety concerns, optimization of empagliflozin and linagliptin, despite the high efficacy, no increased risk of hypoglycemia. You can very clearly see the incidence of this thing. It is 1.8 with EMPA 25 with Lina 5, and EMPA 10 still lower, the 1.1% of incidence, and EMPA 25 is only 2.2, and EMPA 10 is also 2.2, and Lina is 1.5. So you have got minimal hypoglycemia. That too, especially the nocturnal hypoglycemia is very less with this empagliflozin and linagliptin FDC. Next slide please. Yeah, the other safety concerns, optimization of the empagliflozin and the linagliptin FDC, the lower risk of genital tract infections with EMPA and Lina FDC. That is, you can see the reductions with the addition of linagliptin, and you can see little bit more incidence of the genitourinary tract infections with empagliflozin alone, either 10 milligram or 25 milligram. Addition of linagliptin, the exact mechanism is not known why the incidence of genitourinary tract infections are reduced with addition of this particular linagliptin. Probably the postulated hypothesis is one is the linagliptin the creates an environment that is not favorable for this either bacteria or the fungi when combined with this the empagliflozin. And the second thing is and linagliptin is little bit bactericidal and even the fungicidal in its action. That is the postulated hypothesis, and nobody knows why exactly there is reduced incidence of the candidial moniliasis or the genitourinary infections, either the bacterial or whatever it may be, when combined with the linagliptin. Next slide please. And the reference case empagliflozin, linagliptin, FDC affords the early and robust HbA1c up to the robust reductions of HbA1c, 1.8 reduction from mean baseline of around more than 8.5, and significant weight and systolic blood pressure reduction, and minimal risk of hypoglycemia and lower risk of genitourinary tract infection. But is this enough? It's a question mark actually again. So next slide please. So again, what are the essential elements of choosing this particular empagliflozin, linagliptin FDC? And strength of evidence. A is strength of evidence. B, safety, that is the cardiovascular and heart failure reductions and the renal benefits and the hepatic benefits. And C, the stress-free usage and convenience. So the D is any other opinion. So I would go with all these first A, B, C. They hold good for this particular the initiation of this particular empagliflozin, linagliptin, FDC. Next slide, please. And the CV and renal outcomes from the respective cardiovascular outcome trials and the summary. Then these are the two major landmark. To start with, it was EMPA-REG and now it is EMPA-REG outcome, and the Carmelina that are done with this particular the EMPA-REG outcome is with empagliflozin, and the Carmelina and the Carolina are done with linagliptin. With regards to 3-point MACE and the parameters, the CV death and the hospitalization for heart failure and kidney outcomes are much better when compared to the any other molecule. So the combination is much preferred. This is the summary, and you can see that this particular green shows the benefits and the yellow shows the neutrality. That is, linagliptin is either neutral to 3-point MACE or CV death or hospitalization for heart failure and kidney outcomes. And whereas this EMPA-REG outcome, which is regarding the empagliflozin, is much in favor of reduction in the 3-point MACE and the reductions in the cardiovascular death, reductions in the heart failure and the hospitalization for heart failure and the kidney outcomes. Next slide, please. And combining the benefits of the two, that is linagliptin, the renal safety, the cardiovascular safety, ease of use, and the empagliflozin, renoprotective, cardioprotective, and the liver protective also, hepatoprotective also. Yeah, next slide, please. And combining the benefits of the two, and the 8 mm, one small pill once a day, empagliflozin plus linagliptin, FDC, faster to target, lesser chances of urinary tract infections, the minimal hypoglycemia, and the complementary modes of action, that is synergistic effect, and once daily dosage and reducing the pill burden. Next slide, please. And both empagliflozin and linagliptin are recommended for type 2 diabetes management of patients with cardiovascular disease and are at risk of heart failure respectively. And you can clearly see that they reduce CV events and mortality. That is, the evidence is the class 1 evidence, and the SGLT2 inhibitor is recommended to reduce cardiovascular event, is that is class 1A the evidence, and the empagliflozin recommended to reduce risk of death, that is class 1B level of this thing recommendation. And coming to diabetes treatment to reduce heart failure risk, the SGLT2 inhibitor recommended to lower the heart failure hospitalization for the heart failure risk is class 1A recommendation, and DPP-4 inhibitor, the sitagliptin or linagliptin may be considered, that is class 2B, and this is first published in this particular European Society of Cardiology guidelines, the 2019 ESC guidelines on diabetes, prediabetes, and the cardiovascular disease developed in collaboration with the European Association for the Study of Diabetes. Next slide, please. See the renal evidence and the hepatic evidence, and the EMPA-REG outcome that shows 39% in the risk, relative risk reduction of incident or worsening nephropathy in type 2 diabetes patients with established cardiovascular disease, and the Carmelina, that is 14% relative risk reduction of progression to albuminuria in type 2 diabetes patients, whereas the hepatic evidence, no dose modification is required in hepatic impairment with both empagliflozin and linagliptin, and they actually help in reducing this NAFLD to NASH, and they prevent the progression of this non-alcoholic fatty liver disease to non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. In patients with type 2 diabetes and NAFLD, empagliflozin significantly reduces the liver and improved ALT levels, that is according to the E-LIFT study. Next slide, please. And the randomized control trial evidence with SGLT2 and DPP4 inhibitors, the FDC, the you can see this the empagliflozin, the EMPA-REG outcome, the linagliptin, carmelina, the declared TIMI 58 is for dapagliflozin, SEVA TIMI 53 is for saxagliptin, and remogliflozin they doesn't have any cardiovascular outcome trial. Vildagliptin also equally has no cardiovascular outcome trials. You can see this particular the green is very favorable and helpful, and this the yellow is neutral, and red is you should never use it, that is contraindicated. You can clearly see that all the 3-point MACE and severe death and hospitalization for heart failure and the renal outcomes and the hepatic and the dosing and all are very favorable with this particular empagliflozin and linagliptin. But there are ifs and buts, and some neutrality is there as per the declared TIMI study or the regarding the 3-point MACE and CV death. You can clearly go through this the table. Next slide, please. And the effect of empagliflozin plus linagliptin on oxidative stress markers in chronic kidney disease patients with type 2 diabetes, a randomized open label control trial. And the background is hyperglycemia associated with oxidative stress or reactive oxygen species, that is ROS, in the main cause of diabetic nephropathy. And second is EMPA and LINA FDC evaluated whether EMPA and LINA FDC reduces renal oxidative stress evoked by chronic hyperglycemia. And the third one is the objectives to evaluate the effect of empagliflozin bar linagliptin on reactive oxidative stress in type 2 diabetes mellitus with CKD 3 patients, stage 3 patients. Next slide, please. And the inclusion criteria, 48 patients were taken and randomized 1:1 to receive empagliflozin bar linagliptin 10 bar 5 or standard treatment for 12 weeks, and the HbA1c ranging from 7 to 10% who were taking stable oral anti-hypoglycemic agents for at least 4 weeks, and all patients in CKD stage 3, that is eGFR ranging from 30 to 59, that is either stage 3A or stage 3B were included. And to evaluate the renal oxidative stress biomarker measured by urine 8-hydroxy 2-deoxyguanosine, that is what we call 8-OHDG, and the renal biomarker by urine albumin creatinine ratio, that is UACR. Next slide, please. And the EMPA and the LINA FDC not only significantly reduces the urinary albumin creatinine ratio and the renal oxidative stress, but also reduces the HbA1c more than the control group even in the CKD patients. You can see on the right hand side the EMPA LINA group, and on the left hand side you can see the control group. You can see that the 12 weeks period, you can see that the A1c is reduced by 1%, and the renal biomarker urinary albumin creatinine ratio is reduced by 94.13 milligram per gram creatinine. That is earlier we used to call this as microalbuminuria. Now the latest name for microalbuminuria is urine albumin creatinine ratio. And the renal oxidative stress biomarker, that is 8-OHDG, is reduced by 19.99 nanograms per micrograms creatinine, and in the control group and it was reduced by 0.4%. It is very negligent. 0.4 is negligent, and the renal biomarker UACR was increased by 65 milligram per gram creatinine, and even the renal oxidative stress biomarker, that is 8-OHDG, is also increased by plus 33.91, and the conclusion, the result, they suggest that the EMPA plus LINA treatment for 12 weeks that improves the renal oxidative stress and the glycemic control in type 2 diabetes mellitus patients with CKD, which could play a key role in reducing the progression of diabetic nephropathy and appears to be well tolerated. Next slide, please. And now the latest update is that the earlier the cutoff point for this empagliflozin was the EGFR of around or more than 45 ml per minute was the EGFR, and recently the US FDA has brought it down to around or more than 30 ml per minute per 1.73 meter square of surface body area. This is like you can use it extensively to all the patients in your day-to-day practice, the combination or the empagliflozin alone. Next slide, please. And this is the metabolic cardiorenal continuum. This is taken from the Eugen Braunwald, the article, the original cardiovascular risk continuum that was published in the American Journal of Heart, that is way back in 1991. Like the common soil of risk factor, this is called common soil hypothesis, that is hypertension, diabetes, obesity, they lead to this particular atherosclerosis and increased LVH and myocardial infarction and heart failure and endothelial dysfunction, and that leads to micro and macroalbuminuria, and the micro all put together they lead to the common risk factors like hypertension, diabetes, obesity, they lead to the micro and macrovascular complications, and again they lead to end-stage renal disease and the end-stage heart disease and the cardiocerebrovascular death, that is end-stage disease and death. And our reference patient features in this early phase of metabolic cardiorenal continuum, if not intensified early enough, he would progress along with the cardiorenal continuum definitely, and this would add to the early onset of micro and macrovascular complications and end-stage disease, death, and resulting in poor quality of life and increased cost of therapy. For the above reasons, we just have to switch over to the combination of our this particular our reference patient to this particular the empagliflozin and the linagliptin 25/5 the FDC combination. Next slide, please. And EMPA and LINA FDC, they provide risk modification at every stage of the cardio metabolic renal continuum. And you can see this particular the robust up to 1.8 A1C reductions in the patients uncontrolled on metformin, and Madhu, can you take this the yellow line, please? Yellow line, yeah, that's what. So the significant pleiotropic benefits, that is the reductions in the weight and the BP, and the MACE and the heart failure benefits with empagliflozin, that is empiric outcome, and the safety with linagliptin, that is the Carmelina, the COVT, and the albuminuria effects with linagliptin, that is the Carmelina, and the cardiovascular death and risk reduction in patients with atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes with empagliflozin, and the renal safety established with linagliptin in high risk patients from Carmelina. Next slide, please. And does this impact cost effectiveness of EMPA and LINA FDC in long term management of type 2 diabetes mellitus? Absolutely yes. When compared to this particular the complications and the cost, the initial FDC of empagliflozin and the linagliptin, which is going to stop the micro and the macrovascular metabolic cardiorenal continuum, is much beneficial when compared to the cost of the complications and the death rate. And the cost of diabetes in India, you can see that, okay, and the potential impact of EMPA and LINA in the FDC, the positive effects with empagliflozin, that is this 1.8% of HbA1c reduction and 14% relative risk reduction in the significant albuminuria effect, and the 38% relative risk reduction in this cardiovascular death, and the 35% relative risk reduction with the significant reduction in the hospitalized by the heart failure, and the 25 to 30% rupees lower than the cost of the FDC, lower than the individual agents. If you purchase empagliflozin and linagliptin separately, and when you purchase an FDC, you are going to minimize at least 25 to 30 rupees. That is economical and cheaper. Next slide, please. So like closing the poll, where do we need the early intensification with an EMPA and LENA FDC? A, early before metformin. B, early as a partner with metformin. C, late after failure with metformin combinations. D, only when you have complications like CVD, the cardiovascular disease, and the chronic heart failure or the CKD. E, never. A stepwise approach is still the best for most patients. So, to the best of my knowledge and to the best of your knowledge, and we talked about the evidence based medicine until now, and that what features is option B holds good. Along with metformin, you can have to intensify this particular treatment. The early intensification with the FDC of EMPA and LENA, that is 25 by 5, holds good in this particular the given patient. Next slide, please. And the benefits of EMPA and LENA combination, the metabolic effects, the metabolic benefits, and the cardiovascular perspective and the renal perspective. Then more than 1.8% of reduction on the higher baselines, and significant pleiotropic benefits of weight loss and BP reduction, and reductions in the serum uric acid also. And the cardiovascular perspective, you can see that there is significant reduction in the 3-point MACE, that is the cardiovascular death, all-cause mortality, and the heart failure and benefits, and the hospitalization for the heart failure benefits. And the renal perspective, 39% of relative risk reduction in the incidence of or worsening the nephropathy in type 2 diabetes patients with established cardiovascular disease with empagliflozin, and 14% relative risk reduction of progression to albuminuria in T2D patients with the linagliptin as seen in Carmelina. And from a glucocentric approach, we are going towards a patient-centric holistic approach to our patients. Next slide, please. And thank you so much for the patient listening, and I am sorry for the technical glitches. If there are any questions, I feel glad to take the questions, please.